Looking for something new to watch? Aren't we all? Thankfully, there is essentially a limitless amount of spooky, scary anime to view in your spare time. Or all the time. I don't judge. There's plenty of unique and especially creepy stuff that goes on in the world of horror anime, so today we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 newest horror anime you need to watch. Let's get down to business. Coming in at number 5, The Promised Neverland. Hey, do you like dystopian nightmares? Crazy plot twists? Genius children trying their hardest to avoid being sold off and eaten by demons? Well, then you will love The Promised Neverland. A relatively recent offering originating from the pages of Shonen Jump, this is a wild ride through an insane post-apocalyptic world. It's especially interesting in the way that it develops its story over time, too. The first arc of the story is total psychological horror. We meet a bunch of super smart orphans living a pretty idyllic life at an orphanage in the middle of nowhere. They solve puzzles, take tests, and play games all the time while not really understanding the purpose of any of it. One day, though, when an orphan is set to be picked up by a set of adoptive parents, everything changes. One of the older kids realizes their pal forgot a favorite toy and tries to catch up to them before they leave the grounds. Instead of seeing a lovely couple buckling up the adopted child's seatbelt, they witness a horrifying demon consuming the child. At that moment, the illusion is shattered and it becomes clear that this orphanage is more akin to a farm, with orphans being potential food for demons. From that moment forward, it's a race against the clock as the kids try to figure out a way to escape the grounds before they're auctioned off to hungry monsters. However, the mental battle between these kids and their captors is only the beginning, as more details about the world around them gets revealed over time. Everything is even less like it seems than was first imagined, and there's a lot more hostile and horrifying stuff around each corner. There's a lot going on in the world of The Promised Neverland, and it's quite difficult to predict what will happen next. There are some extremely brutal moments throughout too. Nobody is safe and nothing is guaranteed. If you want a constantly changing, super tense psychological horror that morphs into something else, make sure that you check out The Promised Neverland. Season 2 is airing now, so it shouldn't be too hard to catch up to. Coming in at number 4, Dorohedoro. Right, so this might be an odd choice, especially considering the horror theme of the list. I'm not entirely sure that Dorohedoro can be classified as horror per se. It's got plenty of monsters and blood and gore for sure, and some powers available to characters that are terrifying in their own right. But there's also a mix of all sorts of other genres. You've got comedy, slice of life, action adventure, sports, and more. It is a veritable smorgasbord to say the least. But when it chooses to get disturbing and scary, it is totally capable. I mean, the main character is an enormous lizard man in a leather jacket named Kaimon who goes around stuffing people's entire heads into his tooth-filled mouth, which introduces them to a creepy man living inside of him. Usually this man will tell them something, and if Kaimon doesn't like the answer, he'll just kill them on the spot. How did he end up like this? Well, there are 2 worlds in Dorohedoro, one with magic users and one without. The magic users often come into the non-magic world in order to practice their spellcasting, which often results in innocent people being horribly disfigured or dead. Kaimon is the result of one such trip and lost his memory too. And that's just the beginning of the wild and wondrous world. There are enormous crime families who employ mask-wearing killers to do their dirty work. There are devils that can grant people untold powers and also take them away. There are enormous cockroach men with hideous faces and strength beyond reason who scuttle around yelling "shocking." Dorohedoro does the impossible and beautifully balances many different elements while remaining extremely engaging. There are tender, personal moments between characters that quickly change into fast-paced action sequences, which turn into horrific and brutal scenes of sheer terror. If you've ever enjoyed anything that someone has called eclectic, give this anime a chance. Even if it isn't pure horror, it's too good to ignore. Where's season 2? Coming in at number 3, we've got Fire Force. The newest project from the creator of Soul Eater, Fire Force is another example of a horror anime that is definitely not pure horror. However, there are definitely enough horror elements to keep folks interested, especially after its 2nd season release last summer. Fire Force takes place in a world where humans are always on edge. Is it because of debt, famine, the innate cruelty of the human experience? None of the above. It's because at any given moment, anyone could explode into an evil fire monster causing untold destruction. Once they transform, there is no going back, so folks have to get rid of these demons before they annihilate everything and anything they once cared about. It definitely takes on a shonen adventure feel, but there's plenty of horrific moments to keep horror fans engaged, and to top it all off, the animation is immaculate. The fight scenes here are top-notch to say the least, with all sorts of complex battles involving ever-changing fire being the standard. The main monsters, known as infernals, are awesomely disturbing too. The human form is twisted and burned to a crisp here, and infernals are the perfect kind of creepy creature to keep the characters on their toes. Apparently when people spontaneously combust, they experience unending pain which causes them to go berserk. Their appearances vary widely, often due to the different bodies of people exploding, offering plenty of monstrous variety. If you want someone to get your blood pumping, Fire Force is just the ticket. Coming in at number 2, Gleipnir. Five Nights at Freddy's style body horror with a huge body count. That's essentially all that needs to be said about Gleipnir. It's about a guy who can transform into a giant mascot character full of flesh and fuzziness and uses these powers to go around killing people. Sort of like if a werewolf had an enormous round head and a gun. What more can you ask for from an anime concept, right? At first it appears as though Gleipnir is going to be a death game anime, but it soon transforms into a brutal revenge story. Our main character Shuichi teams up with his classmate Claire to assist her in her quest to get revenge on the person who killed her family. His transformation abilities will be a big help, especially because he has a zipper on his back that Claire can use to wear him like a suit. Some very strange stuff going on here. However, the animation is excellent and there are plenty of odd and disturbing moments. Just be warned though, there is so much fan service. Take that as you will. And coming in at number 1, Higurashi, When You Cry Go. Interestingly enough, this one is a long-awaited sequel to a series that has been around for years. It confused a lot of people when it first came out, as new viewers didn't necessarily know that it was part of an ongoing story, and returning viewers might have seen the transition as a little less clear than they would have liked. However, the series was well received in its original run, and the latest iteration does a good job of building on what they already had. It's the story of a quaint little town where nothing is as it seems. It begins with a new transfer student arriving and being accepted into a group of friends. For a little while, they study and play as students do, enjoying the lovely lifestyle of their mountain village. Over time though, the transfer student starts noticing all sorts of weird stuff going on. Amidst all of the innocent routines is a darkness that he can't quite put his finger on. His friends seem to be doing their best to keep dark secrets from him. Some characters return from the previous season too, determined to make things right. But even with prior knowledge, a whole lot still goes terribly wrong. So what kind of powers are hidden in the village, and who is pulling the strings? Part mystery, part slice of life, all subversive horror. Higurashi is a blast and a half. I'd say start with the old seasons and work your way up to the new one, but hey, this is a new horror anime list. Better set some time aside, you might be watching for a while. That's the beauty of anime, right? There's always more of it, if you know where to look. So what'd you think of the list? Did these picks slake your thirst for horror anime? Should I have gone with some scarier ones? What shows did I miss? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more ingenious ones from the top 5 most disturbing scenes in horror movies part 3. KDS Entertainment says, what would my mother say? She's the one who introduced me to horror movies as a child. Well, let's go, horror mom. Hopefully she eased you into the genre with some less disturbing picks instead of throwing you into the deep end with picks from that list. A77 War Robot says Keegan's bloopers and fails would be a terrifying movie, lol. I agree. Every time I watch them, my fight or flight activates. Gilbert Rubio says, my parents saw Zombie in theaters when it came out. My father puked on my mother's lap after that scene. Rip Pops. Yeah, rip indeed. It's a miracle they stayed together after a display like that. Stephanie Dotson says, shouldn't have eaten while watching this. Lol, oh well. I mean, it's not like we tried to hide the fact that it was going to be disturbing. John Michael Berg says, yes, and I don't care what mommy thinks. Hey, good for you, but are you still calling your mother mommy? And Levi Thomas says, anybody who actually uses tools and works with their hands knows the stupidity of the saw scene in Terrifier. That was a steel saw art used, and that wouldn't cut through a human body like that. Yep, that's what people are watching Terrifier for. Realism. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm gonna pound a bottle of olive oil and see if I can weather the storm. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Genius children trying their hardest to everything is even less like it seems than everything is even less like it seems than Dorohedoro does the impossible. If you've ever enjoyed something that bodies of people exploding, offering